Greetings. So I'm going to do some white lettering. Pardon the background noise. I live out in the country, so you'll hear trucks and trains and birds and maybe a stray cat yelling at the door. Who knows? Who knows? But what we're going to do is we're going to use some drawing gum and a fountain pen point. Nothing spectacular, nothing AI generated. That's the wonderful thing about artificial intelligence art. It's certainly artificial, and it's certainly not very intelligent. And it's certainly not art. And the more it proliferates itself like a cancer, I suppose I shall be more insistent on utilizing these older methods. And I'm using the liquid mask here. The liquid mask is designed specifically to protect the paper from the ink. And it's a latex-based material, predominantly used by watercolor artists to create hard lines, crisp boundaries, and highlights. And the use of a fountain pen is because the point is polished and rounded, optimized for writing. Yeah, just dipping in there. It's entertaining stuff. It smells. It's got a wonderful aroma to it. And it's one of the things here, if you'll see where it shines, pardon it's not focusing because I don't have it set on autofocus. If I had it set to autofocus, it'd be focusing on my hand or some other thing. So for the most part, I either use old manual focus lenses if I'm using a Nikon camera, or on this Fujifilm, it's the 16 to 80 with the autofocus turned off. And now what you do is you let the liquid masking fluid dry for a bit, and you select your ink. For the most part, I use this Bombay Black. Works really well. And there's another paragraph down here, but I'm going to do that at a later date. I'm mostly focusing on this right here. Let me go over the nice even strokes. What I'm doing here is I have this in this area right here, these lines in these shapes, following a certain direction, and what I'm going to do here is this is going to be all stars. I'm going to utilize the same technique with a toothbrush and a hard edge to make stars. And I want to try to create the idea of the motion here following the motion here, because the stars, you'll have this nice jagged edge here, which will become evident when the stars are put in place. There. And then you let the ink dry. One of the big issues is that when the ink dries, the dried ink will sit on top of the dried liquid mask, and there's an opportunity for that ink to smear. So prior to wiping away the liquid mask, you want to just kind of dab it a little bit here and there. Nothing too severe. Another thing too is often if you tilt the work area, you can see where the liquid mask is shiny under the ink, and you can see ahead of time where you might have messed up. And as much as I would be glad to rip on artificial intelligence art and digital media, the advantage of the digital aspects is that if this entire thing was a complete and absolute failure, I could go in Photoshop and completely redo all this. And in fact, this specifically is for the workpiece here, and when this goes into production, it's more than likely going to have all of this redone digitally, just for the sake of consistency. And I might not, but the option is there. And it also looks like the ink is relatively dry. One advantage too is select which inks you have that dry flatly. In other words, some inks, it depends on if it's an animal skin glue binder or if it's a shellac binder. It depends on if it's relatively a thin ink or a heavier, thicker ink. Ink will dry either relatively shiny or flat, and this usually works best when the ink is flat because it doesn't hang up so much and it's easier to wipe away. So you just kind of go over here and carefully dab away if there's any miscreant wet spots. And then the mighty reveal. And my handwriting is normally pretty shitty, so I remark upon myself if these are successful that, wow, it's successful, I didn't screw it up. And there are areas here to adjust here and there. And it depends on if I'm rushing it or not. And this actually turns out really well. And the other thing too is paper selection. Now there is a Hobby Lobby Master's Touch brand of Bristol that's situated as being for comic books, and it's not a bad paper, but its inconsistencies I think is a issue, because I've done that with the Hobby Lobby brand Bristol, and it can cause issues. I've had moments where the liquid mask would peel up a little bit of the paper. It's like having a piece of tape. And maybe it's something with the sizing and their technique that they use for making the paper, but it generally doesn't work as well as this. And this is a Strathmore 11 by 17. So anyway, there you go. There is some white ink.